Greetings and welcome to LA Quill. Today we're diving into part 1 of chapter 16 of Arianna's tale. Damuk awoke to a light tapping on the bedchamber door. His personal slave, Hayden, entered. When he saw that his master was awake, he quickly knelt before the bed. He stayed there until his master bade him rise and continue with his tasks. Deliberately averting his eyes from the bed, Hayden quickly dampened the fires in the room before the sun fully rose and contributed its own heat. If his master's rooms overheated, he would be severely punished, and he knew it. Hayden refused to glance toward his master's companion. He was unused to serving his master when there was a woman in the bed. The prince had always sent his women away before the first light of morning, or had left their beds when he was finished with them. But that was for ordinary women. Hayden had heard the rumors and knew that this was no ordinary girl. The rumors said that she carried Prince Damuk's child. But that didn't tell him how to act around her. Was he to treat her as fellow slave or mistress? It was impossible to predict which his master would prefer. Until told otherwise, he intended to treat her as an honored guest. Nothing more, nothing less. He was about to lay out his master's clothing for the day when he saw the woman beginning to stir from the corner of his eye. The prince indicated that he should leave, and Hayden did not hesitate. He wasn't sure he could stand the embarrassment of having to serve them both. Arianna heard the closing of the door as she opened her eyes. After a moment, she realized that she was still in Damuk's arms and she didn't have any clothes on. She pulled away quickly, moving to the far side of the bed. Trying to cover herself with a soft blanket, she glared at him. They were both very well aware that he had let her go, and that irritated her and amused him. Damuk chuckled, giving the blanket she used as a shield a quick yank. Since she wasn't about to release it, she sprawled forward, coming to rest against him again. She tried to bite him, but he evaded her easily enough, enclosing her in the circle of his arms. She wouldn't stop squirming, but he didn't mind that so much. He knew he hadn't hurt her last night, and that her foul mood was more due to anger at herself than anger at him. She'll get over it, he thought. The only real question was how long it would take her to come to terms with her situation. He hoped that it wouldn't take too long. He knew that he would quickly tire of having to chase her around the bedchamber. He would have said something to her, but noticed that her face had taken on a rather green hue. He willingly released her when she pulled away this time, scrambling to the privacy chamber. Damuk was briefly worried until he remembered that she was with child. He heard the sound of her retching in the other room. The door opened and Faylene entered. "Good morning, my lord," she said cheerfully. Hearing Arianna in the other room, she sighed. "Poor child," she said, picking up the robe on the floor, intending to wrap it around the girl for warmth. "Don't you ever knock?" Damuk asked, exasperated. He was going to have to lock that door, he decided. He didn't like the idea of everyone just coming and going whenever it pleased them, especially now that he had Arianna sleeping with him. She'd appreciate the added privacy. "Of course not," she replied. "I'll come and go as I please, always have, always will. Don't you start treating me like one of your slaves, young man." She was actually shaking a finger at him. "You're the only one who still calls me that," he said, raising an eyebrow. "I'm the only one who all but raised you," she replied tartly. Deciding it was better to abandon the topic, and knowing that he'd never win a verbal battle with his old nurse, Damuk changed the subject. "I want her to break her fast with the court this morning." Faylene was already shaking her head. "Not if I have anything to say about it. She won't be eating much this morning from the sounds of it." Faylene knew how stubborn this man could be and temporized. "Have her take dinner there instead, when she's feeling a mite better. I wanted to take her for both meals." He raised his hands as Faylene glared at him. I know. Dinner only. Fine, you old harridan." It was said with affection, so she would take no offense. Satisfied, Faylene headed toward the privacy chamber, ready to care for the girl who was her charge. She was stopped by Damuk's voice. "She hates me, you know." The tone of his voice suggested that he was less than pleased with the situation. Faylene knew him better than even his own father. She had been his mother's midwife 30 years ago. Then she had raised him when the woman had died in childbirth. She loved him as much as she would love her own child. She could hear the tone in his voice, one that she hadn't heard before. It sounded almost like regret. Faylene moved back to the bed. curious. "What did you expect?" she asked softly, deciding to be absolutely honest with him. "You rape her, then kidnap her, taking her from everything she's ever known, and you expect her to be fond of you?" She shook her head. "I know that you're not a cruel man, but she's afraid of you, and with good reason." She hesitated. She was observant enough to guess at what had gone on in the large bed last night. "All you've shown her is your cruelty, and how you'll take what you want with no regard for her feelings. Show her some of your inherent kindness and consideration, and she'll come around quickly enough." Damuk leaned back against the pillows, thinking about her words. She was right, he supposed. She hadn't exactly been nice to Arianna. He wasn't good at nice. He was used to commanding and to being obeyed. It was difficult for him when anyone disobeyed him, especially when it was a woman, and most especially when that woman was a slave. Females, especially female slaves, should be subservient to men. Faline studied him for a moment. There was something very different about the prince today. She realized suddenly what it was. By the gods, she wondered aloud. You're in love with the girl. She was astounded. She hadn't thought that particular affliction would ever affect the handsome prince of the realm. Damuk sat up and shook his head quickly, but Faline didn't let him get a word out. She had already seen clear through him. "Don't you bother denying it, young man. It's too late for that." She thought for a moment. "You cannot force the girl to love you, but if you're patient, she just might fall for you, provided you cease your cruelties. I'll even put in a good word for you." She hesitated once more. "You're an easy man to love, if you just let her see you for who you are." She lowered her voice. "It might not do you harm to let others inside once in a while." He rose and headed to the wardrobe, ignoring her last comment and thinking that last night hadn't been a cruelty. Surely Arianna couldn't hold that against him. Though, knowing her... "I'd appreciate it," he said over his shoulder. "In the meantime, I'd better see what I can find out about her family." He began to dress. He chose a deep blue tunic that matched his eyes. When he realized he'd done it to impress Arianna, he almost put it back. Then he changed his mind, since, in a way, he was trying to impress her. Faline was shocked yet again by his words. "You intend to marry the girl? Make her the next empress? If you're going to do that, you best treat her with a little respect." The idea of Damuk marrying after all this time would certainly cause a commotion amongst the nobility. So many mothers among the court clearly hoped that one of their own daughters would catch his eye. It was obviously too late for that now. The prince smiled. "I can hardly marry her against her will. Besides, if she has no noble blood to speak of, I can't. Hopefully she has a long-lost uncle who's more than just a peasant. Even if it's the blood of our enemies, it would still be noble." He shook his head. "I'd even accept the blood of a successful merchant. In the Republic, they are almost as influential as the aristocracy." The midwife nodded. "Good luck with that. From what I can tell of her, she's nothing more than a peasant, but you never know who's in your family tree until you shake it." She turned to enter the privacy chamber where the sound of retching had finally stopped. As Damuk left the room, Gemma entered, dropping to her knees. He wished, somewhat perversely, that Arianna would kneel before him. It would make his life easier. And that's our tale from L.A. Quill today. If you enjoyed this chapter, let me know your favorite moment in the comments. Until next time, may your stories always be magical.